I'm Andy,
I'm Drew.
and this is Spork.
Spork. This week on Spork, we are going to do a draft of sorts where we are picking former, well, I guess they're still great, but NFL greats from the past and bringing them up to the current era for teams, say this season for a Super Bowl push.
Yeah, I think that works.
Maybe just a playoff push for some of the teams, but so this will be kind of a two-parter. We'll do defense this week, and then next week we'll have the second part with our offensive picks. So we'll do 3 picks each, and with that, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
You're
all
on the
right.
clock.
So, real quick, Drew, do we want to go through what some of our ground rules were
Yeah,
going into this?
yeah. So I think the thought is you pick I'll just say like Johnny Unitas from however many decades ago. The thought is he's got his skill set, but he's got the conveniences and modern training of this era leading up. So we're not just picking them as a snapshot and dropping them right now because frankly it wouldn't be fair. That mentally and from a game toughness standpoint, I think they'd be all right, but it'd be the physicality where these guys are all going to have to put on about 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
So did I miss anything there?
No, that's about right. That's about right. All right.
Do you want to snake it or you want to just go bing, bang, boom, back and forth?
Let's just go back and forth.
All right.
Cool. So, yeah, before we had 100% settled on making that playoff push, I made my first pick. I'm not going to back down from it. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go pie in the sky and a little bit of a homer. So a little bit of chalk here right off the bat is I was going to pick Lawrence Taylor and put him on the Bengals.
And that's a good pick. And I will say one of the ground rules we missed. We're trying to pick anybody that didn't play in the last 25 years. Right?
Yeah, I did anybody from 2005 and earlier, so 20 years.
Okay, 20 years. There we go. So Lawrence Taylor, I had him pegged too as to send somewhere. And so, I think he's, no matter where you put him in an, NFL time capsule, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And, I think his game almost translates better now where they have those more athletic edges and it's not so, I'll say big and rotund throughout the middle. You don't have just kind of the guys clogging holes. I think he's almost a defensive coordinator's dream to scheme around.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like with the Bengals. So they're putting up like some historically poor performances recently, and 2 games really back to back here over the past 3 or 4 weeks is they lost a close one to the really bad Jets team.
Yeah.
Where the defense let them down. And then they lost to the Bears, where the same thing happened where the defense let them down. And you think about a guy like Lawrence Taylor is like, even if he's not making the play himself, everybody's afraid of him. And sometimes that meanness can translate throughout the whole defense.
Yeah, it's somebody the quarterback always has to know where he is. And it's just another thing to, like, I don't know that the Bengals have a guy like that right now. They got Trey Hendrickson, but outside of that, you don't have somebody that's really moving around on defense. He's always somewhere on the line, right?
Oh, of course. When I was like researching this pick a little bit too, I saw somebody, maybe it was a Reddit blog or something like that. So I take it for what it's worth, but they're like, Lawrence Taylor is kind of small and for today's NFL. But I don't necessarily know if that matters in this case because we are talking about, bringing these guys into a modern world where they have a lot of these modern conveniences of training and diet and all these things, like size plays into it, but it's not the end all be all.
Right.
If you have like all the skills and maybe just a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, but and also kind of going back to the Bengals themselves, it's like I remember not too long ago, probably within the past decade, they've had a few of those mean guys on their defense, and those were by far the most fun teams
Yeah.
to watch. At least when you knew that the offense wasn't out there, you're going to have some guys go out there and put a little life into it.
Yeah. No, and when I had him on my big board, I had him going to the Buccaneers to be that foil to Baker Mayfield down there.
Actually,
I think,
that's a really cool idea, actually.
but I think if Burrow's back and you got Lawrence Taylor, two things that are not going to happen.
Exactly. Man, I really like that teaming up with Baker thing.
Yeah.
You should talk about two guys with some swagger.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my 1-1.
All right. Well, with my pick, I'm going to go with Deion Sanders to the Los Angeles Rams. And it's just as much of a defensive pick as it is offensive. Kind of cheating here. But I feel like, having McVay working with Sanders, Neon Deion, and, just scheming different ways to find him and get the most out of that. I feel like he's really been able to take some of these fast slot guys. You think of like the Cooper Kupp, Puka, even Tutu Atwell. He's been able to get some pretty good production and find ways to get them involved. And then, defensively, I think the Rams are probably one of the top teams in the NFC this year. I think them and the Seahawks are pretty much
in defense.
Yeah. And having just add in another shutdown corner to it's never a bad thing to have as you're going for a big playoff push, a deep one.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about him, even just his persona being in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really think of like a better, like cooler spot for him. I mean, he's made Colorado work.
Yeah. I almost put him on the Chiefs, but it seemed like LA was more his style,
Yeah.
Not Kansas City. I guess it'd be like Colorado, but yeah, I just don't see that happening.
So, assuming I'm looking at this correctly, LA this year actually has one of the better opponent passer ratings out there. So they are, I want to say like 8th or 9th in the league in passer rating, which if you put Deion on that team, they're arguably the best passing defense, which is going to allow some of those guys to get after their quarterback and wreak havoc. This is a potential Super Bowl move. I mean, you talked at the beginning of this, like a playoff push. Yeah. I think that, this is a Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah.
Kind of move for this team.
I will say they have no punt return or no kick return touchdowns this year. Granted, they got some between Blake Corum, Xavier Smith, and Jordan Whittington, all averaging over 20 yards a return on kickoffs. But Xavier Smith only has 8 yards average on punt return. So you would think, say he makes the defense marginally better, he's making the special teams exponentially better.
Oh yeah, for sure. And kick returns. They're 31st in the league in kick return yardage. And I want to say punt return yardage is likely, they're 17th in the league in punt return yardage. So put them together, it's not very good.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right. So awesome. We got LT to the Bengals, Deion to the Rams. Who you got next?
All right. So, yeah, people are going to make fun of me because I do feel like I'm just going down my chalkboard here.
Are you just stacking the Bengals?
No, I'm not. I
They need
wouldn't
a
do
lot
it.
of defensive help. That'd be funny if we just did 6 Bengals picks. Remade their entire defense.
You know, that might be another episode. So actually, I had Reggie White going to San Francisco 49ers
Okay.
as my next pick. So San Francisco is an interesting team because on offense, their offense is always gives them a chance, right? It's just like
Yeah.
how they scheme, some of the weapons. I mean, no matter who's playing quarterback, they seem to make it work.
Yeah.
On defense, it always feels like a team that has guys, but never, it just doesn't feel like a team that you fear. And when I was, looking up the greatest needs, they're one of the league worst in QB pressures.
Yeah.
So they have a difficult time getting after the quarterback. I don't know if it's due to injuries or whatnot this year, but they're not getting after the quarterback, and I think it puts undue pressure on the rest of the defense and on the offense
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I also think mean when we were growing up, really young, like Reggie White was still around,
Yeah.
and maybe not prime Reggie White that I could remember, but just kind of going back and looking at it, he really was the definition of like a defensive monster. He just was so strong and
Yeah.
could take on anybody, no matter how big they were. It was
Yeah. Just,
incredible.
yeah. It was almost like it wasn't a person in front of him. It was like one of those dummies they practice with that he was just, pushing a sled through until he got to the quarterback.
Exactly. It would definitely be odd though, seeing him wearing
Yeah.
anything
Switching.
that isn't green.
All right. So with my next pick, I had Ronnie Lott going to the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
And the thought is you have a guy, I didn't realize this either, but he was a first team All Pro at 3 different positions: corner, free safety, strong safety. And I pictured pairing him with Kyle Hamilton there, who floats all around in any number of positions as well. And you have probably the most feared, I'll say, safety combo, but they also are hybrid linebackers, cornerbacks, nickelbacks, basically anywhere beyond the front line. And, I think he had, where was it? Yeah, 63 career interceptions. So you have that, and now you're forcing teams to just run the ball. And I feel like that almost, having Lamar up there, maybe running the ball is worse because you keep him off the field. But, I think you're creating this turnover machine. And I feel like Lamar and the offensive side of it, they're able to quick strike when they do. I feel like, I don't know if that's a Harbaugh thing or what, but it seems like whenever they do get a turnover, they're going deep right away, and they're, trying to go for broke and really just rip the heart and take advantage of that defense or that defensive success.
Yeah. No, I was really torn on this. So I had Ronnie Lott on my board, and
Mhm.
the Ravens came to mind, but then I started like going through I and because of Kyle Hamilton, I
Yeah.
didn't flip that. But man, it's it's tempting because their defense has made quite the turnaround in the past few weeks where
Yeah.
there's a lot there where I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors or something actually changed. And so I stayed away, but like Ronnie Lott, like you kind of think about even the way he played, and you put him in the AFC North.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool like thought. It's a little bit old. It's almost I guess like with any of these guys, we're trying to bring them into the modern age. I think he's another one, maybe just like LT, that brings it back a little bit. Not saying that it's big hits or whatnot, but just even just a little bit more of a hard nosed player.
Yeah. Well, and the big hits, that was one thing that kind of got me hung up is he going to spend half the season ejected because of how many hits he had for targeting? But
Yeah,
yeah,
but I think when we came up with this, right, it was like making the assumption that they were going to adjust
exactly. Yeah.
to new rules, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't play with that same level of intensity
Yeah.
or competitiveness. I think is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I love the player. I like the pick. I can tell you where I had him going. I had him slotted to go to the Steelers.
Yeah.
I've got to move on. I can't.
Yeah. Hopefully you
I,
research more than 3 players.
I have 5.
That's how many I did too. And you go, I'm at, well, yeah, this works out. We should have at least 1.5 left each.
Yeah. No, it's good. That's good. One for an honorable mention. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, for the Buffalo Bills, I'm picking Mean Joe Green.
Just for the advertising revenue, or
Sure. Yeah. I mean, why not?
he was the one, the Coke commercial, right? I'll look
Probably.
it
Yeah. I
up.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was.
Yeah. Yeah. Coke commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. So Buffalo's like one of those interesting teams where a lot gets said about the offense, and the defense isn't that bad, but their run defense is kind of shockingly poor. I had a few things here, just like looking at yardage. So they've given up the 5th most yards this year in the NFL, and they're giving up like 5.5 yards per carry, which I just thought was shocking for a team that's always given this Super Bowl favorite kind of tag. And maybe
Yeah.
that's an exaggeration, but everybody says if you have Josh Allen, you're never really out of it. Yeah, I kind of look at it, it's like, well, if you have a big hole in your defense, what happens if they end up going up against the Colts or somebody who's who lives by the run isn't and is amazing running the
Yeah.
football? It's like that could be the kiss of death, right? So I thought a defensive tackle, especially one that was so highly touted and thought of back in the day, throw him on that
Yeah.
defensive line and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is interesting. I do feel like you have kind of a mindset of putting a guy on these, pretty good teams, but that just needs somebody to as a focal point, right? Like I said with the Lawrence Taylor, like having somebody to always be worrying about. And I agree, I think Buffalo has had a stout defense, but yeah, I don't know that they've had that guy that you can point to as the perennial all pro that, they're worried about and trying to game plan away from. They're double, triple teaming him. Almost like probably a Micah Parsons nowadays, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. All right. So we're on the last pick.
Last pick.
So I was going back and forth on this. But I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So I'm going to do William the Refrigerator Perry to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Ooh.
And I am making that tush push unstoppable. You got a 350-pound fullback defensive tackle that is just going to be shoving Jalen Hurts, maybe even pick him up and carry him 20 yards down the field. But,
yeah, you're definitely going for these guys who are going to play both sides of the ball.
But think of it the other way though. I mean, they've been a good scoring, or I guess not giving up many points. They've been good on the defensive points allowed rating, but they're actually middle of the road too. And their defense is actually bottom third of the league. I think they're around maybe they were 20th, I think I saw at the last time I checked. But having a big defensive tackle just to plug up the middle, kind of force it to the outside where they have some good cornerbacks, good linebackers. But yeah, this was really the all around the tush push. That's what really forced it. And I had to find a way to make it a defensive pick.
Oh, it's funny because this whole past week has been around, are they offsides every single time? I guess this is more they don't need to be offsides. They could just make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, and what if he takes it from under center, and just takes Jalen Hurts out of it? You have him and just falling on all these 220-pound, 280-pound guys. Just he's never falling backwards. I'll tell you that.
Well, as a result of this, AJ Brown's is going to be asking even more vocally to get traded because yeah, he'll just be like, "Oh, see, that's all you care about. This is a tush push. Like, you don't need me here."
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
I don't know if we want to do this. Did you have anybody else that you? Yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But.
Yeah, well, I'll do my other pick that I didn't do.
Okay.
It was Dick Butkus to the Steelers.
Oh, okay.
And the main thought was just, he's Mike Tomlin, I feel like, is the most old school coach. And I feel like Dick Butkus is the most old school linebacker you can think of. And just forcing him there. And yeah, I'm sure nobody in Chicago wants to hear that, but that was kind of my thought.
It makes sense. I had Deacon Jones going to the Ravens as my other pick.
All right. Yeah.
And when we were talking before about Ronnie Lott, I kind of felt like the Ravens needed another defensive player, and kind of like the 49ers, like the QB pressures weren't there. And I thought, the guy that basically coined the term sack. Yeah, I don't know if it was him that coined it or if it was because of him that got coined, but he figured might as well try to get him into the list somewhere.
Yeah,
it is kind of funny though that a few of my picks were around making the Bengals rivals better.
Yeah, we got the whole division, didn't we? Except for the Browns, but
they don't count for this.
All right. So to recap, you had LT to the Bengals. I had Deion to the Rams. Then you had who'd you have going to the Steelers?
Yeah, I had
49ers.
Reggie White.
Yeah, Reggie White to the Steelers.
To the 49ers.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll get there. You had Ronnie Lott to the Steelers. I had him to the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Mean Joe Green to Buffalo and the Fridge to the Eagles. So, any other thoughts before we wrap up and get ready for our offensive draft?
No, didn't have anything else for the defense. Poor defense. It wins you championships, but the glitz and glam. I think that's what's coming up next week.
Yeah, lots of glitz, lots of glam. Hopefully, a lot of points. So
yeah.
And that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and be sure to tune in next time.